We now know that Governor Dewey will carry New York State by at least 50,000 votes, and that he will be the next president of the United States.
On election night 1948, Republican campaign leader Herbert Brownell and a legion of newsmen continued to echo public opinion polls that said Thomas E. Dewey would be the next president of the United States. Only Harry Truman and the American people disagreed. They refused to accept the standstill philosophy of Tom Dewey or the Southern mandate of third-party candidate J. Strom Thurmond. 1968 is beginning to look like 1948 all over again. Hubert Humphrey has stepped into Harry Truman's boots, while Dick Nixon and George Wallace are wearing the shoes of Tom Dewey and Strom Thurmond. The choice seems very much the same. The Democratic campaign began when Humphrey clearly and firmly told his staff where he stands on the issues.
I want somebody to say that Humphrey's ideas are good, and the other one fell and said, well, I guess I disagree with you, and I want them to argue about my ideas. Because when they start arguing about my ideas, they hold you in respect. They may not vote for you, but you've got them on this substantive, argumentative line, and that's what I want. Not whether he's old hat, new hat, whether he can be his own man and all that cheap journalistic bunk. But let's get on with, let's get this argument elevated. Now, we've just got to make it crystal clear that the President of the United States and his ambassadors are making a determined, major, massive effort to find an honorable peace in Paris. But the peace of the world is going to depend on the capacity and the ability of the Soviet Union and the United States to maintain a mutual respect for each other and to see that there isn't a major confrontation that boils over into nuclear war. That's the way it's going to be for the next at least 10 years, and maybe longer. You know, Mr. Nixon is the one man that cannot talk to the Russians. And if you think there's any chance for world peace without a president of the United States to be able to talk to the Russians, you're wrong. And whether we like them or whether we don't, the Russians, we've got to learn how to live with them. And at least we got to have a mutual, we got to have a contact. I've talked with Mr. Kosygin more than any other American save the President of the United States, and maybe more than he has. But we're going to talk about the life of our people, the life of our nation, the life of this world, how we preserve this life, how we enrich this life, how we make it meaningful, how we make it better, how we make it last longer. Now, everything that Bobby Kennedy fought for, and if any of you have those feelings, we fought for with equal vigor, not more, but with equal, and sometimes earlier, and we're prepared to do it as long or longer. The whole emphasis in this campaign on major substantive issues will be essentially the urban community, urbanization. And I'm the one man in this whole business that's been with the large city. What's more is I have worked for 4 years now with every mayor of every major city in the United States and been to dozens of meetings with them and have visited their cities. You're talking to a fellow that's been in more slums than all the talkers put together. We've been there, and we've been with the slum kids and the slum adults. And we've been out there to see in these projects and these back alleys. Now, see, I feel this. I ran all the vocational schools in the state of Minnesota, all of them. I was the area manpower director, so I had a little experience. We went and liquidated our relief rolls with the war on poverty. The first citywide vocational rehabilitation program of retraining employment in the United States. I liquidated the employees of the WPA. I trained and retrained them and employed them. That was my job as the administrator of that division. They talk about law and order, and everybody's talking about law and order, and there isn't one of them that could even run a scout troop. I did that too. I did run a police department. And I increased its size and doubled its pay and cleaned it up and reorganized it and made it also acceptable to the community. I've talked about the most commonplace problems that happens in our slums. The place that has the least police protection that needs the most, that has the oldest schools that needs the newest, that has the poorest teachers that needs the best, that gets the garbage collected less often and needs it collected more often, that has the oldest fire equipment and needs the newest, that has the worst streets and needs the best, that has the fewest parks and needs the most. The easiest, the most humane will to kill a person is quickly. The agony of disease, the agony of fear, of worry, of despair, of not being wanted, of prejudice, of bigotry, of hatred, that's the worst way to kill a man, because it just lingers on and on and on and on, and you live in misery. Now that's the picture of slum America. And I know it like I know at the back of my hand. I've been all over this country. There's no candidate that's ever run for public office that's been in urban America as much as the man you're looking at. And if I don't know this, then I do not love my mother or know my children. I know that we've helped young people, and we've helped a lot of them. And that's a wonderful feeling. We want young people, but really what we want is not so much their adoration as we want to do what is right by them. I'm not really going to, it's not going to kill me if they're not cheering me, because this won't be the first time that this has happened to me in my life. I've had to do a lot of things where people spent most of their time jeering me. So being popular is not so important as trying to do what you think is right. I want to give you one other suggestion. The American people today they want to adjust to the change that's here, but they do not want to break with all that they have. And you don't have to sell your soul, but you do occasionally have to take a little note of what the other guy's doing and give him a little attention. 77% of the American people today have a little investment in a home, and they want to make sure that that fellow that's going to be their president isn't going to let their house be burned down, isn't going to let the mortgage market go to pieces, isn't going to let the stock market go to pieces. And at the same time that he's doing all these protective things, that he's going to make sure that they get a little shorter work week and that they get better education for their children and so on. It's a mixture, a kind of a sensible mixture of self-protection on the one hand and social progress on the other. And this is a typically American pragmatic approach. We're very much moved down here in Washington by the militants. And there's a role for the militants, but I want to tell you there are two kinds of them. There's that intellectual militant that makes you think, that stirs up your juices. And then there's that noisy one that just stirs up your emotions, and really the counteraction, the reaction is devastating in this country. I met with 4 militants yesterday out in St. Paul. They think that you're playing games with them. They don't think that you're really listening to them, because most of the time when we get with them for the first half hour, they're so abusive in their anger that you don't want to listen any longer. But I took an hour with them, and after 30 minutes, we started to communicate. The first 30 minutes, they poured out their vitriol on me. And I just sat there and took it, because maybe that was only 30 minutes of humiliation I had to take. They may be taking it for 20 years. But as I said to these young people as we left, and they questioned me at length, I said to them, look, don't try to destroy the law by violence, because you're not going to win. If you think the law is unjust, and we have reason to believe that it's unjust, or being unjustly and inequitably enforced, then there's only one thing for you to do. We need to get together. I can be your instrument for an honorable, democratic, procedural change, because that's why we preserve the right of dissent in this country. That's why we believe that you must respect the right of a minority. And I think I made a sale. But there's never been a government that has done as much for the poor, and never been a government that's done as much in the field of civil rights as this one. Never, never, never. And it will be viewed in history as phenomenal.